Introduction. I had 4 topics that I wanted to take up, and so far I've only done one, and I've been talking for almost 22 minutes. So obviously we're not going to get to 4 topics today. Um, One other idea that I thought was really interesting that came up this week. I did a lot of video this week, and I ended up not writing very much because I had other things going on. I'm working on a book and not sleeping very much, and juggling a lot of eggs. But Brian Brady, my friend Brian Brady, asked me a question about what kind of organizations are best at promoting the idea of self-adoration the way I think about it. And he cited an article that was in the Wall Street Journal about, Brett Stevens wrote an article about, to high school or to college graduates, telling them to try to learn something useful before they go out and get a job because they've just wasted 16 years of their lives getting no education, whatever. But he cited an intern that he had who was a second lieutenant in the Army and was a real go-getter, was really top-notch. And Brian mentioned that a lot of people that we admire, a lot of people that we think are very interesting in the world out there now, have a military background. And so do I think that the military is a good source of learning the habits of mind that result in self-adoration? No, I do not. I do not. Nor schools, obviously not colleges. There's no organization that I could think of that is going to promote the kind of ideas that I'm interested in, because they're completely antithetical to the interests of organizations. An organization is a herd. It's a herd of sheep. And I'm not saying that all of the individuals who belong to that organization are sheep. To the contrary, but from the point of view of the shepherds, those are the sheep. And what is the number one job of a shepherd? The number one job of a shepherd is to hang on to the sheep. And any organization that you could name is going to do whatever it takes to preserve its own ongoing success as a herder of sheep. It is not going to do anything to encourage any ideas of independence or self-reliance in the people who belong to that organization. To the contrary, it's going to discourage those ideas in every way. And if someone gets to be a little bit too rebellious, they're either going to be punished or expelled from the group. That's what happens. And so the intern that Brett Stevens was talking about was the exception, not the rule. And the people that Brian and I know who we think are very admirable people, they're the exception and not the rule. They were probably that way before they got there. And I'm not implying that people can't learn the kind of ideas that I'm talking about. I know they can. But they're not going to learn them in any kind of an organization, even an organization that is putatively devoted to the idea of self-adoration. Organization theory is a branch of, I don't know what it is, I guess a branch of political science or psychology, or maybe the intersection of the two. But organizational theory very competently argues that organizations exist for their own purposes, and especially to grow all out of proportion to any possible need that they might fulfill, that's what they do, that a group is going to sustain itself. And so he mentioned the Jesuits, and I think a Jesuit education is a wonderful thing for a child. If you can get your kid into a really good Jesuit school, especially a Jesuit high school, please do. Your kid will learn amazing, amazing things they would not learn in any other high school. But the Jesuits themselves are hugely communist. I mean, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but at least a majority of the brothers, of the members of the Society of Jesus, are communists, actual red Marxists, and the organization encourages that kind of Marxism. The same thing for orders of nuns, or labor unions, or military cadres, or offices, job sites where people work together. These all become like families. And there's nothing wrong with the family. And one of the things that you'll do, that will happen if you say something about communism, is that you don't have to talk against communism for very long to get some dipshit undergraduate show up and say, but what about the family? The family is perfect communism in action. I'll tell you what, the family isn't perfect communism. The family is a perfect family. And the reason that the family works is that the to each don't even know that the from each are giving up so much. And here again, it's Mother's Day. You want to talk about from each? Your mom sweat, bled, screamed in agony for 30 hours giving birth to you. Why the hell did she do that? What was she thinking? You ungrateful wretch. But the parents in a family give for years on end before they get anything in return, anything other than a smile and a giggle and a pile of dirty socks and undone chores and massive complaints about everything. They give, and that's why it works. And this is why communism doesn't work, because the people who are going to have to do the from each get sick of it after a while. Why should they go through all that agony? Why should I go through all that and not get a Mother's Day card, for Christ's sake? Not to say that a Mother's Day card is anything like the compensation that your parents would do, but it's what you're going to give them. A Mother's Day card and dinner out. But organizations like the Society of Jesus, or like a military platoon, or like an office, those groups of people come to be like families. And especially people who are, high S in the DIS system, really social, really interested in social relationships, those people come to prize the relationships more than anything else, more than the putative objectives of the group. And the reason that you find so many communists among Jesuits is that they live in a state of communism. That's the way their communities work. That's the way they all live together. They live together and they all work together, and everybody contributes and everybody benefits. And heck, it works for us. Why can't it work for everybody? Well, it won't work for people who do not identify a greater benefit in the community than they do in their own individual pursuits of their values. And if you're going to coerce people into sacrificing their values for your sake, you have to expect that they're going to reject that. And I don't see any way around this in the way of organizations, that the individual who wants to do better, who wants to achieve self-adoration, is really going to have to do it pretty much alone. I mean, I can help and other people can help, and I do a lot in the way of providing links to offsite resources for places where you can go to improve your mind. And obviously much of what I write is about intellectual self-defense, about defending yourself against dominance games by other people. But this is pretty much something that you're going to have to do alone, because any organization that you're going to be involved with is going to be serving its own ends, which are anti-individualistic, which are completely opposed to your goals as a self. And when your goals as a self come into conflict with that group's objectives, that group is either going to punish you or purge you. That's the only options that it has. That's the only way the group itself can survive. And frankly, my argument would be to you that, put not your faith in princes, put not your faith in groups. Do not look to groups to solve anything for you. Other than, self-selected groups like your family, where everybody, or at least everybody who has any power to make a decision, is pursuing the common interests of the group rather than what might be the particular interests of that one individual. If you're not in a group where everyone is committed to the good of all, then that group eventually is going to turn on you. And when it turns on you, then you're going to have to decide what matters more to you, your sovereignty or your membership in that group. And my argument would be your sovereignty matters far more, but that's not a decision I can make for you. I'm not going to should you about this, because it's something that you have to decide for yourself in the context of your own values.